The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it.
How many individuals do all of us know who simply cling to fabricated facts to support their ideologies of total denial? How many do all of us know that would much prefer a pacifying lie to a painful but necessary to face truth? Welcome to the latest installment of the Global Alert News Hour. Not news to make you feel good, no. Rather, news that you need to know if you care about preserving any future whatsoever for yourself, your children, and the web of life. And as I cover the most dire stories from the front lines, don't lose heart. Face the storm head on, and stick with me until the end of this broadcast when I'll give specific instructions on what you can do to make a difference at this most dire moment in human history. This is Dane Wigington for the weekly edition of the Global Alert News Hour for June 24th, 2017. As always, this is a commercial-free one-hour news program brought to you by GeoEngineeringWatch.org to cover the most dire, critical frontline stories. This show is broadcast throughout Northern California on 1670 AM, 104.9 FM, and 105.7 FM. The Global Alert News Hour is also aired on the East Coast by the PRN Radio Network, Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. My thanks to Gary Knoll for all he does for the greater good there. Recordings of this show can be found on GeoEngineeringWatch.org under the Top Stories, Recent, and Radio sections, and at the KQMS archives. Orchard Nutrition, for those who live in the Redding, Shasta County area. At Orchard Nutrition, you can get free materials to educate you on what you need to know about climate engineering, what's happening in the skies above your head that's affecting the Earth's life support systems and every breath you take because of the toxic fallout from these programs. You can get a free DVD also on the Silent Epidemic film, The Untold Story of Vaccinations. We must educate ourselves on what's being injected into our children's bodies and our bodies with vaccinations that are now proven by peer-reviewed study to do harm. Find out what you don't know and what the medical industrial complex is not willing to tell you because their paychecks and pensions depend on keeping business as usual. For those that live in the Redding, Shasta County area who want to know more about the subject of climate engineering and the immense threat it poses to us all, there's a free educational video film screening titled Hacking the Planet, The Climate Engineering Reality. This screening will be in Redding this Monday, June 26th at the Redding Patriots Meeting. The location is 3276 Pacelli Lane in Redding. This is in the Town and Country Shopping Center on Pacelli. There will be free educational DVDs and other materials at this event. Climate engineering is nothing short of weather warfare. Due to the highly toxic materials the climate engineers are spraying into our skies and skies all over the globe, climate engineering must also be considered biological warfare. We're talking about materials like aluminum, barium, strontium. Who gave the government and other governments the right to play God with Earth's weather and climate systems? Who gave them the right? Our apathy gives them the right when we sit on the bench and do nothing while this is going on above our heads. Same is true with the vaccination cataclysm that's occurring because no one wants to stand out from the herd and say, no, this is wrong, it's enough. We have enough data now to prove what's happening is causing immense harm. It's time for us all to stand up and make our voices heard. Come to this event this Monday evening if you live in the area and find out what you didn't know, but what you need to know. And I will be at that event to answer questions after this film screening as well. I want to send out a reminder also, the upcoming July 28th event at the Red Line Hotel in Redding. This will be a free public event with 3 primary speakers. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny to elaborate on the latest data with a brand new presentation outlining just how much harm the vaccinations are doing statistically, scientifically to our children. We have Kevin Shipp, former decorated CIA officer that wrote the book From the Company of Shadows, sounding the alarm at great personal price on just how corrupt and criminal our government is. Again, this is a former decorated CIA officer. Come to the Redding event, Red Line Hotel, July 28th. Flyers will soon be at Orchard Nutrition and posted at GeoEngineeringWatch.org, giving specific details as to the event for Friday evening, July 28th. But Kevin Shipp will shine the light for us on exactly what's happening behind the curtain of our government. And I will give the latest updated frontline data, all new presentation on climate engineering. And climate engineering is the issue that is most determining our planet's ability to continue supporting life at this time. And that's a massive statement because the human race has been very poor stewards of planet Earth from too many directions to even begin to quantify. But if you want to find out on three of the most critical issues we face by far and acquire free informational materials that you can take home and continue to investigate, attend this free event in Reading, sponsored by GeoEngineeringWatch.org, and educate yourself on these critical issues that by the day are literally determining what futures we may have left yet or not. I want to send a special thanks out to my friends and brothers in Argentina, Ludovico Dobeling and Pablo Alonso, who are translating data from GeoEngineeringWatch.org. And we are posting that data, Spanish translations, to reach our Spanish-speaking brothers on a link on GeoEngineeringWatch.org on the left side. My most heartfelt thanks to these two men in Argentina who are dedicating an immense amount of time to translate this data so that others around the world can find out what's happening as well. Before getting to headlines, some more points to ponder. With each passing week, the wheels of mass distraction continue to turn. The political theater of the absurd goes from one chapter to another. Theater that's fully manufactured by the power structure and the mainstream media machine they completely control. And for those that allow themselves to be distracted by the manufactured political theater, I would say this: the state of the environment is and always will be the bottom line. When the environment dies, we die. There can be no other outcome. As always, I'll stress the following points that we would all do well to remember and to consider. The biosphere and its life support systems are continuing to unravel. Industrialized, militarized civilization continues to tear apart what is yet left of the environment and the web of life. Climate engineering is playing a major role in the ongoing destruction. On with headlines, because as the biosphere implodes, as I've stated week after week and program after program, the power structure will become ever more desperate, and they will play the only card they know how to play: conflict, global conflict. That's what the military-industrial complex survives off of. How hard can that be to figure out? And when will the American population face that reality? Our nation is now built on the military-industrial complex, on an empire that has become the most destructive empire on the planet. And that's saying a lot as well, because there's a lot of criminality, tyranny, and corruption all over the globe, and governments all over the globe. But those corrupt elements and the destruction being caused by them is in direct proportion to the size and the strength of the nation being considered. What nation is by far, or has by far, the largest military machine that's as big as the next 10 militaries combined? What do we expect the military-industrial machine to do here but to cause conflict? Let's start with some headlines. U.S. shoots down Syrian jet that was bombing ISIS. As I've said, program after program, week after week, why is the U.S. continuing to support ISIS? For all the reasons I've stated. Because they need conflict. The military-industrial machine needs conflict, and they are funding, fueling, and supporting terrorists at this point. This is an indisputable fact. Headline from last week: Donald Trump comes to the aid of ISIS terrorists. U.S.-led coalition downed Syrian army plane in southern Raqqa. The plane was carrying out operations against the Islamic State, i.e. ISIS, in the countryside around Raqqa when it was targeted. The U.S. yet again bombing the very military forces that are fighting ISIS. Why is this hard to figure out? If you're waving your American flag, pretending you're patriotic, and ignoring the facts, you're a part of the tyranny. You're a part of the programmed false patriotic problem. We need to face reality. We need to face what our country is doing. And it's actually fueling terrorism in so many ways at this point. Another headline from last week. This is one to consider. The U.S. has acknowledged only a fifth of its lethal airstrikes, just 20%. And the U.S. population is all too happy to buy that lie, to ignore what our country is doing, and to be distracted by the political theater while we're literally, in many cases, have bombed wedding parties, funerals, atrocities, absolute atrocities that we do not hear about from our power structure controlled criminal mainstream media. And we have plenty of that in Reading, don't we, with the Record Searchlight and with KRCR that blacks out events. And by the way, let's ask if they're going to black out yet another major free public education community event, as they have blacked out the last two events, completely omitted any coverage, regardless of the fact that there were government scientists at these events, 1,000+ individuals at these events, physicians at these events. KRCR and the Record Searchlight completely omitted any coverage because that's what they're paid to do, hide the truth. So back to this blocking out of the true severity of airstrikes the U.S. is inflicting on other countries. And think about that. The U.S. shooting down that country, Syria, shooting down their warplane over their own country as they're trying to defend their own country. Would we stand for that here? Absolutely not. And yet we have Americans making themselves feel good that this is okay. Somehow it's okay. It's protecting U.S. interests. U.S. interest means nothing more than corporate interests, which means nothing more than supporting the power structure, which means supporting the empire. The United States is an empire, period. There's no getting around that fact. For those who deny it, I would ask this: when does right and wrong become a part of your equation and not blind ideology? I want to get to more headlines because there's so much unfolding as the biosphere implodes and the military-industrial complex rampages around the world. Another headline. How does this headline plug into the equation? First shots in Trump's war. This is from yesterday, Friday, June 23rd. The first shots of America's new war for eastern Syria have already been fired. From that report, if the Trump administration officials have their way, the next U.S. war will be to block the Syrian army from retaking Syria's Euphrates Valley. From that report, as it continues, when the U.S. shot down the Syrian S-22 jet Sunday last week, this may have been intended as a warning to Syria that the U.S. intends to take eastern Syria for itself, and that a Syrian push into eastern Syria will be violently opposed. As late as April, the Americans still assumed eastern Syria, the city of Raqqa, and the entire Euphrates Valley down to Iraq was theirs for the taking. The Syrian army, they assumed, was too far away and too weak and too busy to try to liberate these areas from ISIS itself. A high-ranking U.S. officer confidently told CNN this: "Right now, we're not planning or coordinating with them," i.e. the Russians and the Syrians who are fighting ISIS. "They're not even located near Raqqa. We think they have their hands full doing their tasks in their areas." And that's what the U.S. wanted. They don't want ISIS cleaned out everywhere. That's their excuse to occupy countries, to topple them, to destabilize them. This is business as usual, as I've covered program after program after program. The School of the Americas, which I covered last week, training terrorists to seed abroad all over the world to create conflict, chaos, allow the U.S. military to move in and occupy countries. That's why we have our boots on the ground, our bases in 156 countries. Who has a base in the U.S.? Who? No one. The United States has become a completely out of control military-industrial complex-fueled empire, and the U.S. population, I am so sorry to say, has so far supported this empire and looked the other way to justify keeping their own personal parties going. I would ask this: when does morality and virtue and honor enter the equation? When does right and wrong matter? Does a life in one of these countries that are being bombed and toppled, the children there